Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. You're probably wondering, what's Jesse doing on Jack's show on a Tuesday? Why is a Hammer Nail show on a Tuesday? Well, Jesse's got some big things going on over on his channel, and so we've made some changes. We're going to start doing this thing on Tuesday night, which in some ways is going to be a little bit better. You guys can hear us argue about the game that just took place in some ways, and then instead of getting you set up for one, this way it's not so long down. And like I said, Jesse's got some good stuff he's working on, so it worked out for both of us. We took a little bit of a hiatus, but hey, week one is in the books, and we are here. So welcome to the new and approved Hammer Nail Show. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, Jack. It's crazy because Thursdays basically would have been a preview show for all the games,
Yeah.
right? And so now we actually get to talk about, which I kind of prefer, like getting the retrospective afterwards. Wednesday's that hump day, and then Thursday you fully turned on to the next game. So I like that we actually get to discuss each game, and it's not too late in the week. So I actually kind of prefer this.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun. So
Yeah.
we have Jason says, "Sup guys?" We have the Astro channel says Jack has a dark personality. I don't like him. Dang.
Yeah, gee.
Can you read my whatever chart and let me know what's going to happen to
Oh,
me?
Astro Channel. Yeah. Okay. I see what he's done here. I like that.
Yeah. And then we got Dan Rostek, who's a member of the Toolbox, and he says, "What's up, Jack, Jesse, and everyone? What's up, Dan? Good to have you on board." All right, so let's get into the game. Let's get into the 49ers go into Chicago. Pretty much everybody had them as they were a 7.5 point favorite. I think I don't know if it went down before the game, but at one point they were a 7.5 point favorite. Most people are thinking they're going to blow them out. I wasn't one of them. They end up losing. They don't even win. They lose 19-10. Is this
what was your score prediction going into that game, Jack?
17-13 49ers.
So you had it close. Okay, you had it closer than I did. I had it. I thought I had it close too, but that's man. All right.
Yeah, that's what when it was 13-0. I was sitting there and I was thinking, well, I'm going to get the score right here. When it was 13-10, yeah, when it's 13-10 and they got the ball back, I was, I'm going to get this score. I'm going to nail this score, and then didn't work out that way. But hey, I thought it was going to be close. I was talking to somebody from Chicago, a reporter from Chicago, or waiting in line, and he was not very didn't think the Bears had any shot. And I said, well, we'll see. I think this game's going to be closer than you think, and turned out that way. But the 49ers have kind of done this. Seems to be a little bit of a history with them in week one. Is there a trend in week one with the 49ers that you're seeing?
There certainly is, Jack. So it didn't show up, I believe, in 2020. It did not show up, but in 2021 and in 2019, or maybe I had that reversed. Maybe last year didn't show up. But either way, week one, first of all, we've always historically talked about how the 49ers start off slow offensively, right? And that's something we should expect. Last year, obviously, they had the explosion on offense, but penalties also. They're very, very undisciplined in the Shanahan era. And you've seen it 3 of the last 4 years, right? Including this game. And so it's an interesting thing or dynamic that is happening with the 49ers that they don't score a lot on offense. They're very undisciplined. And when you look at it, I mean, they're playing these teams that they should beat very, very closely, right? We can go all the way back to 2018 when they played the Vikings and they lost that game. And that was a very winnable game then, right? A lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, end up losing that game. We go into 2019. They had, I think, the Jimmy Garoppolo pick 6, a bunch of mistakes in that game. And then the defense, they get the couple pick 6 themselves. Thank God they're playing Jameis Winston, and they're able to pull it out. But at that time, I mean, Tampa was not a very good team that year, right? And they hung close with them. 20, what was it? 2020? They play Arizona. Arizona wasn't a great team in 2020. Everybody had them winning that game. They make enough mistakes. They don't win that game. Then last year, everybody had them blowing out the Lions. That game got super tight near the end. And here we are again with a game that they absolutely should have won. And the game ends up being close and they lose this one. So it's an interesting trend that I'm seeing in the Shanahan era over the last 4 years where they're historically playing a team that they certainly should beat in week 1 and really beat soundly and either end up losing or the game is very tight. And a lot of that is self-inflicted with really bad penalties against themselves. The offense can't get it going. This is a trend, in my opinion, with week 1 for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a week 1 trend. There's last year the 49ers were not good in the first half of the year. They were 3-5. They're turning the ball over a lot. A lot of penalties with the pass interference stuff were taking place. Just a lot of things were going on. And we're seeing that again. I think so. I don't know if it's just a week 1 trend. It might just be a Kyle Shanahan 49ers trend that this kind of stuff happens to them and they haven't figured it out, because it was something that dogged them all last year. And, the turnovers were there on Sunday. You had the one from Deebo Samuel in the first drive, the one from Trey Lance in the fourth quarter when it was 13-10. And, then you have some penalties. You have penalties on both sides of the ball, penalties on the offense, penalties on the defense that hurt them. There was we know about the defensive penalties. We'll get into that in a little bit. There was a big offensive penalty on Brandon Ayuk as well, offensive pass interference. I know they ended up picking up the first down when Trey Lance ran for it. They still lost yardage in that. Instead of being out, like around the 45 or whatever, I'm just guessing at the top of my head, they were at like the 37. So they lost, they pick up a first down, but they lost yardage. So it's overall, I think there's definitely a trend of Kyle Shanahan's team for the most part not being disciplined in general. Really, you go back to like you said, the years that you're talking about, 2018, you talk about 2020, last season to an extent, even though they won on opening week and they didn't get hurt by penalties in that week, but they just they fell apart in the fourth quarter. So yeah, there's a trend of tight games in week 1 and week 2. Kyle Shanahan's now 2-4 to start off his seasons in his first 6 years in San Francisco. That's not good either.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're 100% right about that. And last year, similarly, we looked at the schedule and go, okay, those should be 2 wins to start off with, right? And they did. They ended up winning both those games. They certainly did, but both those games were really, really tight games. So you're not wrong at all. This is an early season trend. It takes them a while to get going, and we'll see. I mean, because the interesting thing is this year is you have a first year starting quarterback, right? And so you tend to start off slow offensively for an offensive minded coach. And now you've got a new quarterback. I mean, I think that bodes for the trend sticking around potentially, right? Like if I'm going to look at it from afar and just make a prediction, I'm going to say, yeah, that trend probably continues. The offense may struggle for a few weeks, may take them a while to get going. And if that is the case, what does that record look like 4 games into the season, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's for me, I came to the prediction, the numbers that I came up to with the 17-13 was because I felt like the Flyers defense was going to do pretty much what they did, that they were going to shut them down. And I looked at the offense and I said, okay, well, Trey Lance has started 2 games, and those 2 starts, they've only scored 32 points. I don't think they're going to, based off of what I've seen from them during training camp and all that kind of stuff, I kept saying that they were not a team that had a lot of rhythm. They on offense and training camp, it seemed like they would move. They'd have good plays and their bad plays. It just wasn't consistent. Watch them in preseason, and they were never really consistent. The time they did score with Trey Lance on the field in the preseason was on a shot play that they hit. Other than that, they didn't really move the ball very well. So I just wasn't all that positive on them. And so that's why I went to the 17 points. I just felt like the 49ers, I felt like Lance was going to do okay. And I felt like the talent of the 49ers was going to be able to overcome it. And it wasn't. And when it comes to Kyle Shanahan in this game, I will say, I agree with you. If we're going to blame Kyle Shanahan on something, that's the undisciplined nature of his team. I'm not going to blame him on the play calling portion of it, though.
No, and you know what? We'll talk about like who's kind of to blame for the game, but I oddly enough, I wasn't the one that was like screaming for Shanahan's head, right? So, it's just one of those things. We'll talk more about it in depth, but I'm with you on that, by the way. And even the discipline stuff, it's like at some point, yes, of course, you teach these guys, but you can't make every move for them out on the field. Now, if this continues for 3-4 weeks and this penalty after penalty, and they're like the Raiders were for so many years leading the league in penalties, okay, then we've got something here. But first week, yes, there should have been better discipline. Yes, that's somewhat on the coaching staff, but at the same time, it's like, man, some of these decisions were just knucklehead decisions by some of these players, and it's like you can't play for them either. So it goes both ways. I see both sides of it.
Yeah, and we'll get into the penalties and in a little bit, at least because I know one of our topics coming up is Trey Lance and Justin Fields, and so when we get into that point, I'm going to talk a little bit about those penalties at that point. When you look back at this game, why did the 49ers lose, in your opinion?
Man, Jack, I think there's a lot of things that really go into it, and I'm trying to give just a simple, concise answer. And if I were to do that, I would say nobody played to win. And what I mean by that, nobody played good enough to win the game. Everybody played good for moments, right? I can point to every player and be like, hey, they flashed here, they did good here, and then they missed here, right? You got the Hafunga on the potential touchdown, the broken coverage play. You've got the penalties after making big stops. You've got Lance missing a throw or throwing an interception while also looking good earlier in the game. You got Debo doing a lot of really good things and then making the mistake. You've got the offensive line. Actually, I thought looking for the most part good until you get a third down sack or you put your quarterback in a third and long because of what, So there was, and then Shanahan started off on fire with play calling and it kind of slowed down a little bit. I'm not saying it was bad, but it wasn't like, I just didn't feel like that urgency was there, right? And so I just feel like this is an ultimate team loss where every single person had really good moments with really bad moments. And so the result is you didn't really play good enough to win the game and you let a Bears team stick around. This is the result that you get. So personally, I don't blame one person or one unit. I think everybody had a hand in this one, unfortunately. So we'll see how that plays going forward.
Yeah, I think when, as I tweeted late in the game that, I felt like people were going to blame the defense because of what the second half looked like. And I didn't agree with it. And I still don't. I also don't agree with the people that want to blame Trey Lance. I don't agree with them. I don't agree with the people that want to blame anybody, really. If they want to try to I don't agree with anybody that wants to pin this loss on one person or one aspect of the game. The offense had the offense had opportunities in the first half. It should have been 17-0 at halftime, at least. Who knows what would have happened? I say 17 because we don't know what would have happened with the Debo Samuel thing. The Lance miss, that's going to be a touchdown if he gets the ball into his hands. But the Debo Samuel one, we don't know. So that's why I get to 17. And that this game should have been done. First series into the second half, it should have been 20-0 or 24-0. It just should have been there because they, like I said, they had 17. They should have had 17 at least. That opening drive of the second half, they get a field goal, could have been a touchdown. So that's why I say this game should have been done at that point, but they didn't. They let them hang around, and you let teams hang around like they did, and bad things are going to happen. And you could see it coming late in the first half with Justin Fields, and it's whether it's play calling, whatever. I just think that it was just a total team loss.
I'm with you, and there was a lot of points left on the board, right? So let's go through them all real quick. You got the Lance missed touchdown, that's 7, right?
Yeah, well, it starts off with the Samuel fumble.
The Samuel fumble, which is either 3 or 7. We'll say 3 just to be safe. That's 10 points. Then after that same drive that Lance misses the touchdown, McGlinchey whiffs a block and takes him out of field goal range.
Yeah.
So that's a guaranteed 3 that they blew there. I don't know if we can add it on top of because it's the same drive, but
no, it wouldn't be on top of, but
it wouldn't be on top of, but you know what I mean? Minimum, that's 6 points there. could be 10, right? If Lance hits the touchdown, could be 14 if they score a touchdown on the Debo one, right? And then even the second half, when Lance makes the great throw down the sideline to start it, hits Jennings, they're right there ready to score. And Wilson has an easy walk-in touchdown. Banks hits the second level, whiffs on the linebacker. That linebacker makes the tackle, and that's 7 right there. So they went from 7 to 3. That's another 4 points. I mean, we're talking minimum 10, 14 points, as much as 21 points that they left right there on the table. That's rough for any team to get over in week 1 on the road in sloppy conditions. You can't overcome that. You can't. And then you add in the penalties. It's like, I don't know how anybody looks at that and goes, oh, that was Shanahan. Oh, that was Lance. Oh, that was the defense on this. I don't understand how anybody can come to that conclusion. There was a lot of mistakes made, plenty to go around.
Yeah, and you brought up the missed block on the Wilson run. Agree with that. I thought Lance should have hit the touchdown to Juwan Jennings on 3rd down. It's wide open. Throw the ball. He's looking at him when he hits his back foot. Doesn't throw it. Not sure what he's looking at there. All around, I just felt like this was, and then, when you want to talk, this is just about Shanahan for a minute, because you mentioned it, and not saying that you said this, but I've heard a number of people bring it up. And if you look at the way the game played out, he didn't change his play calling from quarter 1 until it was the 4th quarter and they were down by 3. Even then, he didn't really come out throwing that first drive. After they got down 13-10, I think they came out and ran the ball the first couple plays. I'd have to go back and look at it. There's the touchdown to make it 13, and then their first play is a Lance incomplete. I guess they started throwing the ball a little bit more early on there. But it's just one of those things where it's just, I don't know. Lance was really good. It was really good in the first half. He was 6 of 10, 70 yards. We know he had the miss, but beyond that, he had a very good first half. Opened up the second half, missed his first throw, hit the second, was a deep shot down there. After that, the game started to turn on him a little bit. The second half, he was 2 of 6 before the rain started. I think that some of it was Lance, some of it was Shanahan, some of it was offensive line, and they just didn't run the ball as well. I think the biggest difference for them was what Dan says here, and I should have got to it earlier, but Dan's member of the toolbox says losing Mitchell doesn't help. And I think really that's what changed the flow of the game for the 49ers in the second half, is Jeff Wilson Jr. struggled with some runs. He just didn't have his best game, and you can only run Deebo Samuel so many times, and you need to have him play wide receiver.
Yeah, I think one thing that we learned, and it sucks that he seems to not be able to stay healthy, but Mitchell is clearly the most explosive and best back on this team. Like he looked so explosive, Jack. I mean, I thought he looked good last year, and I thought people really kind of crapped on him this offseason. But to me, he looked real explosive out the gates. I was like, wow, this player was already pretty good. He's now added that explosion, that maybe not the 4.3 speed that he ran in the 40, but damn, he's close in that short burst area, man. He's shown a lot of athleticism on these runs, and then it just ended so quickly. And it was weird because I was watching the game on playback, which, I'm like half announcing the game, talking through it with people and not really listening. I didn't even know he was out of the game. I didn't even know he was hurt until somebody had pointed it out to me.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird. Because he got hurt, but he didn't come out. The injury. Kyle Shanahan said yesterday that the injury occurred on the 11-yard run on the touchdown drive where Deebo Samuel scored. He didn't leave the game at that point, though. He stayed in the game and actually missed a block on a run to the left for Deebo Samuel right before the touchdown, because they came back the next play and went the other way.
Yep.
And scored. So he didn't come out right away. He played the next play, and then I didn't even realize he was out at first until they announced it over the thing in the press box that Mitchell was out for the game with a knee injury. So yeah, it was, and I think that was a big part of it. We'll see what happens. One of the interesting pieces, and I heard this yesterday on the press conference, and I just didn't tweet it out because I didn't get I don't know why I was busy getting back from Chicago and I was half asleep. So I'd been up since 1:30 Pacific Coast time. Uh, he had mentioned how the other backs, needed some help with, with the playing without the ball in their hands. And so I think that kind of gives you an idea what they think about Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason. Both those guys are runners, but there's some other things that are missing in their game right now, and that might be why there's. Adam Schefter is reporting that the Flyers are going to sign Marlon Mack. It's not official yet from the 49ers, but that could be why they're bringing in a veteran.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the Mack signing, by the way. I mean, to me, Marlon Mack, he just turned 26. He's 2 years removed, essentially, from a major injury. This is a guy who rushed for over 1,000 yards once and was very close a second time. And when the Texans, I know it's preseason, but when the 49ers and Texans played, I thought his explosion was back. He looked good to me. And he is a decisive runner. He's a decisive runner. He's a decent blocker, and he can catch. He's really a 3-down back. Do I think at this stage he's as good as Mitchell? Probably not. But would I be shocked if maybe not this week, but the week after, Marlon Mack is the starting back and they're running him, or have him out there 80% of the time? I wouldn't, because he's a veteran. He's still got explosiveness. He can do it all. He's a 3-down back. I think that they got a kind of a little steal here that may end up panning out for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Marlon Mack play this week. Running backs can figure it out pretty quickly. Don't need, they did it last year with the guy that they picked up from the Bengals when everybody got hurt.
Jaquez Patrick.
Jaquez Patrick. And, he played, I think, the first week that he was with the 49ers. He came in, I think, on Wednesday and was playing on Sunday. So they can get him up to speed, and I think they could get him playing relatively quickly. So we'll see how it works out. Yeah. It's definitely it's a bummer, though. Mitchell was playing good. So, 2 years in a row now, the Flyers have lost their starting running back week 1. But like Dan says here, the only silver lining is it doesn't look like it's going to be a season-ending injury. You never know with running backs because of this whole thing. We'll see. It doesn't sound like it was. What did they say? It was a sprained MCL, right? So it wasn't torn or anything like that. So maybe they got away with it a little bit here.
Yeah, and they may have gotten lucky, but then the flip side of that is, okay, what's to say he stays healthy when he comes back, right? Assuming he does, and then how in shape is he? How long does it take? It's unfortunate because explosiveness is something that showed up very early in that game for him. And it would be a shame if he lost a little bit of that because of this setback. So,
yeah. We're gonna switch topics real quick. I'm gonna pull this one up. I'm not gonna really address it too much, but Tua wants to know if I heard what Mike Martz had to say with regards to Lance. Well, we're gonna get into both of those guys right now. We're gonna get into Trey Lance. We're gonna get into the other quarterback that he talked about in that clip, which was Justin Fields. That was it was interesting. There's portions of it that I agree with. There's portions of it that I definitely disagree with. He pretty much just took a flamethrower to both of those guys. Forget about that really quick though. Look at it in this way. The question is, was Trey Lance that bad and Fields that good? I don't know if I would put it that way. I think the question is, I'll let you just answer it that way. Was Trey Lance that bad and was Fields that good? Let's just go from there.
No, I mean, to me, they looked similar in slightly different ways, right? I think, this is what's interesting to me, Jack, and this is where my frustration comes in after that game, and some of the conversations that are coming out when it comes to Lance. I'm looking at all those quarterbacks, right? And I get it. Lance is in the quote unquote best situation, yada, yada, yada. Uh-huh. But Lance also, from what I hear, is supposed to be way behind those guys, right? You bring up the 300 something snaps since high school and he's not polished, he's not ready, all these things. But then I watch all of those quarterbacks from that class play and I go, they may be better at certain things than Lance, but are they clearly like, are they here and Lance is here and he's got a lot of catching up to do? These are guys that had a lot more college experience, played at big schools, all the things that we hear, played a lot last year. I mean, I I would expect that those guys would be here and Lance has got to play some catch up because technically he had to play catch up coming out of college because he didn't have the experience. He didn't go to a big school or whatever that we hear. And then he didn't play last year and those guys got to make leaps then. But when I watch all of them play, I don't go, man, I don't know. Lance is so far behind. Did they make a mistake? I don't get that. And, fortunately in this game, we got to see both players in similar conditions. And for me, like the one thing that I looked at with this is, okay, one team's more talented than the other on paper, all those things. The weather is crappy for both. What can I look at and judge that does not change regardless of talent around you or weather? And that's decision making. And I felt like Lance was better in the decision making category. Then the flip side is, well, Fields is going against a tougher defense and all these things. He made some really good plays. And when I look at both of them, I think they're both better than what this game showed. And the weather equally played into that for both of them. Both of them were sub 50% passing. I think they're both more accurate than that. I would say Fields is probably, at least on early film, looks to be a pretty accurate passer, actually. And so I don't think he's a sub 50% passer, right? He was in this game. I don't get the narrative that Lance is so bad and Fields or any of these guys are so good. I don't understand that. So I guess my answer is no. I don't think either of them were great. There's certainly looked like they both have some growing to do, as I would expect for all of these guys, because they're still in year 2. And I've always been firm in saying that we won't know who any of these guys truly are until the end of year 3. You have to give them this time for any of them. I think that's fair to say for all of them. And so to me, I think they both left some things to be desired. There was certainly mistakes made on both sides, but I really, really did like the decision-making from Lance. I thought he was pretty damn good there. And for a quarterback who has 3 starts and only 300-something passes since high school, I'm impressed with that. And I think that's an important thing for a young player. So no, I don't think either one played really bad or really good. They just kind of were, they did enough for their team to hang around, and one team was able to pull it out and the other one wasn't. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think the difference in this game, and I don't think there was a, I think if we wanted to characterize these two quarterbacks in this game, Trey Lance was the better thrower of the football. Justin Fields was the better playmaker. I think that's the difference. Trey Lance, I don't think there's much doubt about it. Here's the one thing that Mike Marks did say that I do agree with. Trey Lance can move around, but he's not going to be a guy that does anything like what we saw Justin Fields do. He's not going to be a guy that does stuff like Lamar Jackson, those types of things. That's not him. That's just not him. He's fast, but he's not a shifty run around kind of guy. So when he calls him a fullback, I get where he's going. I can kind of understand that. I don't think he's a fullback because I haven't seen a fullback run 13 yards and be able to shake a safety the way that Lance did on that 3rd and 13 draw. But he's not a shifty guy that's gonna shake you and run around the field and do those kind of things. I don't see defenses. I don't think you're going to have a defense that's going to watch him and be overly concerned about his ability to break things open with his legs the way that, for example, the 49ers had to worry about with Justin Fields on Sunday. I look at him much more like it might be controversial, but I look at him more like Colin Kaepernick, and that Colin Kaepernick was really fast in a straight line. He'd run around you. He would just blow by people, but he wasn't really shifty as a runner, right? He was bouncing around. He could move in the pocket a little bit here and there, but he wasn't going to run around like Russell Wilson or any of these kind of guys. So that's where I see some similarities between those two, if that makes sense, without getting into.
Yeah, and I think Cap was actually probably a more explosive runner. Like Cap was in a straight line. I don't know. There's many people, right? Yes. But you're right. I get the pocket thing.
Real quick. Can I stop you? Okay. Since you just mentioned that, there was one run by Trey Lance that I think if it was Colin Kaepernick, it's a touchdown. And it was in the third quarter. They're going in that direction. He runs the ball to the right side, and instead of cutting up, he just keeps running laterally almost until he gets to his back, the guy that's blocking out there, and then he cuts up and he gets tackled. If you watch that play, if he cuts up and if he cuts that thing up and he runs it at Brandon Ayuk, Brandon's got his man covered, and I think he can play off Ayuk to get that safety covered. And if it was Colin Kaepernick and his running ability, I think that's a touchdown. Sorry.
Was it the read option play where he kept it?
It was a 6-yard gain. It ends up being a 6-yard gain. It was, I don't remember. I think they ended up scoring a field goal on that possession.
I think it's a read option play that you're talking about. And he kept it and went around the right side.
Yeah. He goes around the right side, and you can just see him. He's just running laterally the whole way until he gets almost gets to the guy who's blocking for him out there.
Yeah.
And then he cuts it up. And that's one where it's like, why are you running like this? Just like there was room for him to cut. And if he cuts, it's him on a safety with Brandon Ayuk blocking the guy in front of him. And I just think that if it's a guy like Colin Kaepernick, who is a very good runner in the open field, I think it's a touchdown. I don't know. That's the difference. And that's where I think Trey Lance lacks a little bit.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we talked about, Jack, we talked about this, again, I always go back to that show where we broke down all these quarterbacks. And one of the things that we talked about extensively in that show is he is not the guy that is going to sit in the pocket and break containment outside the tackle box. He's just not going to, that's not his style. He's not going to Tony Romo spin you, get outside the tackle box, and then just be an ultimate weapon. He's the guy that's going to stay in the pocket, climb it, and then when it's, if there's nothing there, he'll take off up the middle. But he's more of a, like if we have categories of quarterback runners, right? You have the Lamars and the Murrays and even the Hurts, the Fields, those types of guys. And then you have a category that's more like, okay, good runners, right? But it's more like Cam Newton, right? Where it's good, right? And you can get yards with it. I mean, he's going to run for 500 plus yards every year. Like that's just going to happen. But it's just a different style of running. And so I get it. I do. I agree with that. I just don't think that he's ever going to be that guy that is game breaking speed type thing and is going to be that. But, you said that teams may not have to game plan it for it as much or be as worried about it. I'll say this, you don't have to be scared to get beat up, right? That's something my dad always told me. You don't have to be scared to get beat up. So you may not be scared of it, but there will be a game or two where he gets 100 yards rushing because he does have that in him. It may look different and it may be slower and may not be as explosive, but he can reel off a game like that if you let him.
Yeah, he's gonna have games where he's gonna do it. We'll see if it can translate into the wins though portion of it. Because I go back to Kaepernick again. I can remember, I think it was the NFC Championship game with Kaepernick up in Seattle, and Pete Carroll's like, let him run. We're going to make him beat us. Let him run. He can run everywhere he wants to. We're going to, I remember that from NFL films. It's interesting. And then you look at this game and Philly 215. He said this a lot earlier, but it kind of plays into where we are right now. Thank you for the super chat. It says too many points left on the board and penalties extended Bears drives. Recipe for a loss. That goes back to our discussion earlier, but it goes back to the discussion of these two players as well, because the points left on the board. I mentioned it earlier. I feel like Lance left 14 points on the board. The touchdown, the miss to Croft, and then down in the red zone, I feel like he had Juwan Jennings quick. He's looking to his left. I thought he had him open. Originally, when I watched it live, I thought it was the tight end. I could see on the coach's film that when he went and turned his head from the outside to the tight end, Dwelly was still kind of engaged at that point with the defender, hadn't really gotten to the outside yet, gotten to his cut. So I can see why he passed up the Dwelly one. But I just don't know why he didn't take the outside shot. So I think that there was some of that. So when you talk about the points that are there, and then you go over to the other side and you talk about Justin Fields, and Justin Fields, he was not a good thrower of the football for most of the game, but he impacted the game with his legs. His impact on this game, he completely changed the game with his legs. And he made the plays that it needed to be made. And I know that the touchdown pass to Pettis was on a broken play and whatever, but he made that possible because of the threat that he brings with his legs. We can get into a little bit more than that, but I just wanted to see if you had anything before I get on my soapbox.
Yeah, I would say, to me, I think I can sum up this game with both players threw a ball directly to the defender.
Mm-hmm.
One defender caught it and the other one didn't. If we flip-flop those scenarios, the 49ers win this game and the Bears don't. And I think it's that simple. If Jackson doesn't catch that interception and Wilson does, we're talking about a 49ers win. We don't ever get to see the amazing spin move and all those. I mean, Fields was given 3 opportunities to make that happen. Remember, third down. The Bears all game long told us they did not want Justin Fields throwing the ball. There was multiple third down and mediums where they're like, no, we're going to run it. We're down 10. It's third down and medium. We're going to run the ball. Penalty happens. Next play he throws should be interception right in the chest of a player. It gets dropped. Then he gets that third opportunity, makes a fantastic play. Yes, it was a broken play, but Fields absolutely made that happen. If Fields doesn't do what he does, that play's not a broken play. So he deserves all credit for it being that open, but it was on a third chance. If that interception's caught, I think the 49ers win. And then if the one that Lance throws is dropped where he threw it to a defender's chest, we're talking about a completely different game, in my opinion. I really think it comes down to those 2 plays, and it's that simple to me.
Okay. No, and that's fine. And real quick, thank you, Philly Chu, for your question. We also have this guy always gets me. Dabada. He's thank you for yours. He says, "What's up, guys? Good seeing Jessie back on here." Yeah, Jessie finally decided that he wanted to come back and talk to me. So we got him on the show tonight, and it's going to be fun. The thing though here I think is missed is when it comes to this game. I know, again, I'm not. If I'm the 49ers, I'm not going back and saying I want to have Justin Fields over Trey Lance. At least not at this point. That's not what I'm saying. With feeling like I feel like I said to you earlier today. Both quarterbacks threw interceptions. One quarterback made the plays when his team needed them. The other one didn't. And Justin Fields impacted this game greatly with his legs. And I understand that there were the penalties, right? But between the broken coverages and some of those penalties, those were directly impacted by what Justin Fields was doing with his legs. And if you go back and you watch the game, Fields isn't really doing a whole lot. He isn't really comfortable. He doesn't look comfortable throughout the first half. They're not really asking him to get out of the pocket very much. He's having to just do his thing and play their game. And then they get into the last possession for the Bears in the first half, and they boot him out. He picks up 12 yards. They boot him out the other way. He picks up 11 yards. Whatever the numbers were. And you saw him, or at least I saw him, start to get comfortable in the game. He started to get into the flow of the game. He started playing his game, which was, I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to make plays with my legs, and I'm going to make the defense have to get me. And they didn't score points on that possession, but they were in position for a field goal. The only reason they didn't get the field goal off is because their punter came out and decided to wipe the ground with a towel, right? And that was the only thing.
That was so stupid. Right? Such a bad penalty.
Yeah, and we don't. I wish I knew the name of the guy in New England that went out there and did the snowplow, because that's probably where that penalty came from.
Yep.
Back in 1982, I think it was. But you could see Fields starting to make the 49ers defense stressed with that. And then in the second half, obviously there's the penalties. But again, 2 of those personal foul penalties were on hits to Justin Fields, because Justin Fields, the way that he plays and his ability to run basically until you're in his face and then drop to the ground. And at that point, it's just so hard on the defender. So that leads to 15 yards, 30 yards. And then there's another one where it's third down. He escapes the pocket, and he was going around the right side. He gets tackled for a loss of like 4 or 5, but because he escapes the pocket and the play keeps going, now you have Charvarius Ward grab onto his receiver and get called for holding. So it's a automatic first down instead of a 4th down punt. he just impacted the game with his legs in so many ways that don't show up on his personal stat sheet. Even the touchdown to Dante Pettis. I mean, the first touchdown. Well, first off, on that play, 49ers need to stop putting Eric Armstead as the defensive end. I know he started that play on the inside, but he looped around and he became the end while Bosa came up inside. And there's a reason why he's an interior defensive lineman now for the 49ers instead of an edge player, and he gets beat. But then again, it's outside of that, again, the Justin Fields and the threat, Talanoa Hufanga, he's locked in on him the whole way because he's playing the robber type of position in the play call right there. And so he's got his lies locked on him. And as soon as he starts to run, he takes off. And he takes off at the quarterback, leaves Pettis wide open, and gets a touchdown. It's just, I think, again, do I think that Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Trey Lance? No, I don't think so. But in that game, he made the plays that were necessary to win. The other one didn't. That's the way that I would categorize their performance.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I could see how you get to that conclusion for sure. I guess the whole point in the very beginning was I just don't look at any of these guys and go, man, Trey's so far behind. What the hell did they do? I'd look at them all and say they all have room for growth. Every single one of them. And that includes Trey Lance. You know what I mean? And so this is where you're at. Like, this is what you chose to do, San Francisco, right? Mm-hmm. You chose to get development players all up the middle of that offense, from the 3 interior offensive linemen to the quarterback. And now you got to live with that, right? Like, you got to live with that. And it could be frustrating at times, right? It may be downright you want to pull your hair out at times, but that's the situation at hand. That's where we are at. And the 49ers chose that. So they got to live with that.
Yeah, we're going to find out what Trey Lance is. I don't know what Trey Lance is. I know everybody wants to know what Trey Lance is right now. I don't know what Trey Lance is right now. I don't. I think he does some. Real quick, before I get into this, 49ers first takes, Big Bad Aaron. I'm going to go on his channel tomorrow. He's coming back. He says, "Hey, my dudes, all my faves on the tube for you tonight. The 49ers' lack of discipline is a major issue that a supposed Super Bowl caliber team can't have." Absolutely agree with that. I'm just going to say this about Trey Lance. I don't know what he's going to be. I think there's the Trey Lance so far. If we just look at his numbers, just in his starts, we can get a little bit into the context of those. I think we got about 8 minutes or so before we have to jump off. Is 55% completions in his 3 starts, 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in those starts. He's now 1-2. I know that he played against a really good Arizona team. I know that he played against sloppy conditions, and he played against Houston and all that kind of stuff. Whatever it is with Trey Lance, I don't know if it's a Trey Lance thing or if it's just an overall whatever. But when Trey Lance is on the field for the 49ers as a starting quarterback, even in week 17 when they were playing good, this offense gets funky. They scored 10 points in the first start and the last start. Against Houston, they didn't score any. They scored 10 points through the first 3 quarters. So there's just something, and I don't know if it's a Trey Lance thing or if it's a Kyle Shanahan thing or if it's just a combination of the way everything works. But there's something funky going on with this offense when he's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, listen, you've got a quarterback who's made 3 starts. I think that it impacts not only him, right? He's still learning, but I think it does impact the coach because he's trying to figure things out, and I think it impacts all the players around him. They're trying to figure it out with him. Mm-hmm. I just think that they're so early in this process that these are some of the things that can happen. Now, I'll say the difference in this game was they could have we just talked about it. They could have put up 30, right? And really should have put up 30, And so it's not like it's, and I would say the other difference in this game is they were good on 3rd down, right? They were decent on 3rd down in the Arizona game, but that was just kind of that whole game was weird, right? And so, yes, they were decent on 3rd down, but they were good between the 20s. They couldn't ever punch it in. This game was like all the things that you want. Can they move the ball between the 20s? Check. Good on 3rd down. Plenty of yards in the game to win it. Can they score when they get inside the 20? Well, yeah, they should have. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they didn't make the plays to score or they weren't there. There was just one mistake by a lineman or Debo fumbling or what have you. And so the points were there to be scored in this game. I think, unlike the other two, and the third down, they were good on third down, right? And so
Uh-huh.
those things are encouraging for me. And this is not, this is not a hey Trey Lance thing. This is just as a team with Trey Lance.
Uh-huh.
Because the first two games, I don't know if I could leave either of those and say, man, they were both good on third down and they could have put up a lot of points. It was one or the other. This one I felt like was actually both, and it didn't come together, right? But it was there to be had.
Yeah, it was there, and we're going to find out about him. And like Neil says here, thank you for the super chat. He says Fields struggled the first few starts. It takes time. Lance by start 10 will be making those plays that are necessary frequently. So have patience. That's the hope, right? I mean, that's the hope. That's what we're hoping. We don't know that for sure, but that's the hope. We're going to find out. And I there are lots of things to like about Trey Lance, right? When you see him make what he does differently than the quarterback they had before was it's a throw that didn't even count in the game. It's the out route to Brandon Ayuk on the left side where Ayuk gets called for an offensive pass interference penalty. That's a play that they didn't really have success with the previous quarterback. And we've seen Lance make that play twice now. He did it against Houston as well. In the Houston game, almost the same. I think it might even, it was
Jennings,
the same
right?
type of thing. Yeah, it was the Jennings in the Houston game. So it was very similar. The ball was, in the same placement, all that kind of stuff. But you've seen him be able to make that throw now in those two instances. And then the other part is the run. Again, the 3rd and 13 scramble draw, you're not going to see that out of Jimmy Garoppolo. And so those are the things that he brings that are different. And I'm not comparing him to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm just saying those are the things that are different.
Yeah, for sure.
Now they need to get to where they start to put points on the board. He needs to be better in the red zone. He needs to be able to take advantage of it. I know, hey, when you're only throwing the ball 10 times in the first half and one of them is a miss, you're just not getting very many opportunities, and that's the other part of it too. So it'll be interesting this week when the sun, well, I suppose it might be raining in Santa Clara.
I was going to say we might have another rain game, actually. Yeah.
No, it's supposed to be cleared out by game time. But, I just, there's a lot of things I like about Trey Lance, but there's a lot of question marks that are still out there too.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because somebody in the chat mentioned it, and this is what I want to say as well.
Well, who was it? I'll pull it up.
I honestly can't remember. They're kind of going so quick, but I'm sure you'll find it as I'm talking about it. But basically, the thought process was this team was good enough. This Super Bowl ready team was good enough to overcome Trey Lance as he's learning. Like, that was the expectation, right? Mm-hmm. And, I saw somebody earlier say, you know what, Jimmy winning in Washington is exactly why they should have played him in this game. And I go, that was very different. First of all, they only scored 9 points in that game. They actually scored less in that game than they did this game. And the defense gave up 0 points. Like that, the defense actually helped win that game and didn't make those late game mistakes as far as, whatever. And so either way, my point is this. We thought this team was good enough to overcome Trey Lance while he was learning in week 1, and they still may be, but in week 1, they were not, right? And I remember as that game started, I did the playback thing with David Lichty, and as we were talking through it in the very beginning, I said the key to this game is you do not want to be in a situation at the end of the game where Trey Lance has to win it with his arm. You cannot be in that situation. If the 49ers play this right, they will win this game, and they will not have to rely on that arm late in the game, because expecting Trey Lance to go win you a game this early on will result in a disaster. And that's literally exactly what happened. To a T. What they couldn't do, they did. And what happened? Interception resulted in disaster. To me, early on, this team has to be good enough to kind of overcompensate for while Trey's learning and is not perfect. And then hopefully the goal is he gets good enough as they make that playoff push to where he actually can start to win you some games. And that's the hope.
I don't agree with your point there. That is what they have to do. They kind of have to be able to overcome him. He's got to make the play Deebo Samuel's got to hold on to the ball. Dabada. I finally got it. Dabuda. I don't know. Just make it Dabadoo. Just make the last one an O instead of an A. Then it'll be a whole lot easier for me. Just make it Dabadoo. But Jesse's much smarter than me. That's why he got it right the first time. I am not very good at that. Dabuda. I'm gonna be
Dabuda.
My sleep tonight. Dabadoo. I don't know. Whatever. I just did it again. See that? And then there was another super chat I think in down here that I haven't gotten to yet. There's a lot of. Maybe that was the last one. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be, I think that I do know. I just think that it's going to take some time. We're going to find out a lot about Lance as this season goes along. It's going to be a growing process. We just need to, there's going to have to be a lot of patience and at the same time, pay attention to the growing pains. It's going to be, again, I don't have a problem with calling him out because when he does good, I'm going to praise him just like I did during the game. The good throws I said were good. The bad throws I said were bad. And I didn't blame him for the loss. So it's going to come. It has to come for the 49ers because if it doesn't, it's going to be a big time problem. So we'll see. We'll find out where he is. I think, the national media is a little tough on him. And hey, that's what happens.
National media is a joke.
That's what happens.
Absolutely ridiculous.
That's what happens when a team spends 3 first-round picks on a guy and
keeps the other guy around. They did this to themselves. They did this they did to themselves. But
I think you're right to an extent on they did it themselves. And I also think that Trey Lance was always going to be the guy though that was going to be the most interesting. He's kind of like the most interesting man, right? Because nobody really knows a whole lot about him. He played in 2019, didn't play in 2020, and he wasn't somebody that people watched a whole lot of. And so he was kind of like the whatever, most interesting guy, right? And that's who everybody's picking on. And right now they know that, hey, they can go and they can get clicks off of Trey Lance, and that's cool. And I saw somebody on Twitter earlier today say, what are they going to do when Trey Lance, when this dries up? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to keep talking about Trey Lance because you want to know what? 49er quarterbacks are always going to be in the news. It doesn't matter what, especially in San Francisco. The coach comes in, he says, Trey Lance development is going to be emblematic of this team's veteran leadership. Kyle used to be the butter between the guys and Jimmy Garoppolo. That hedge is gone. All the all-pro talk didn't count for diddly poop with if they play like this. And I agree. And Trey Lance is going to develop.
The on paper being so much better doesn't matter if you shoot yourself in the foot repeatedly. Yeah, give yourself a handicap,
I was expecting for Kyle Shanahan to come on yesterday when he did his injury report and say that the entire team was laid up with feet injuries as a result of shooting themselves consistently throughout the first half and the second half of the defense. But
they're all questionable.
They're all questionable with holes.
Let me address this just real quick. I know I got to get out of here, but Shylock Swindlefork says gave up 3 first-round picks. He better be able to win it with his right arm. Yeah, absolutely. Eventually.
At some point.
At some point. 100%. If he's not that guy, eventually, then they made the wrong pick, right? And so that is true. But to expect that right now, I think it's a very unrealistic expectation. I think that comment right there tells us exactly where this fan base is, and it's just that we're not in the right frame of mind as a fan base. I'll say that.
He's never been in the position that he was in. He hasn't. He was never at North Dakota State down 3 in the fourth quarter with 7 minutes to go in the game. He's never been in that position. And I don't even think he was in that position against Arizona. I think they're maybe down by 7. I don't remember exactly what it was. I'd have to go back and look, but he's just never been in that position. And it's going to be this whole thing's a big learning experience. Jesse, I know you got to bounce. Everybody in the comment section. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for putting up with me and for joining the show tonight. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing this on Tuesdays with you.
Yeah, of course. No, this is great. And it parlays right into my show. So if you want some more 49er talk, Sunil and I will be live in 1 minute time over at Last Second Sports. So head on over there and we'll keep this thing rocking. Appreciate y'all.
Awesome. Go do your thing while I wrap up the show.
All right. Sounds good, brother.
All right. Take care.
Later.
All right. And real quick, before I leave, I wanted to say thanks to everybody in the comments section for you guys were a lively group. Thank you for all the super chats. Raphael 5629ers here is a member of the Toolbox. He says, great show, gentlemen. I bring him up because Raphael 5629ers always reminds me to make sure to tell everybody to like and subscribe. on your way out if you could. If you like what you see and you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. When you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification so you know when we go live. And then also hit that like, because those likes are the lifeblood of the YouTube channels. They really help us get our signal out there. And then last but not least, get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That is the Inside the 49ers blog over there. That is where I write. And if you get over there and you check it out, you'll be able to see the article from yesterday about who to blame for this game. And then there'll be a little bit of a film breakdown article that's going to be coming up later tonight. I got all the clips ready to go. We just need to write it up and it'll be out there. So hopefully trying to get that out by 8:30 tonight. So check it out, everybody. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.